I'm hoping for sweet, delicious loot in here. That actually just gave me like chills in my arms. Did not like that at all. Wow. We are now in something called the Other World, which is a staple in Silent Hill, and my god, do people argue about what the Other World is all the time. I don't enjoy pissing off entire fandoms, I promise I don't, but if you take a firm, hard stance on what the Other World actually is, there's a good chunk of the Silent Hill base that will immediately argue with you. So the Other World is in every Silent Hill game that I'm aware of. Hey, how about we don't do that? Get the movies out of your mind completely. Get them out of your brain. In the other games, not Silent Hill 2, the Other World is usually way more fiery than this. Like, it looks like more traditional, like a hell, basically. This game, it kind of plays out more like Freddy Krueger's Playhouse, you know, the boiler room type thing. It was just watching TV. You don't have any eyes. Sorry about that. Anyway, as I was saying, the movies depicted the Other World as almost like an alternate dimension, both Fog World and the Other World. Don't let me get too convoluted on you. So just think of the Fog World as where we started the game at. But there is a lot of argument and speculation that the Fog World is not a place of its own. It's just the real world. Man, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. I'm going to call it Fog World. When I say Fog World, I'm referring to when there's literal fog. The characters will be walking through Fog World, and then the whole area will start to morph into the Other World. And later in the movie, you see that characters can be standing in the same place in the real world, Fog World, or the Other World, and they can't actually see each other. Different dimensions, basically, is how it's treated in the movies. The game's always just treated as the world around you was physically changing to look like this. And it might not really matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. It honestly doesn't. Everything down to the environment gets more twisted, dark, and demented. So the Other World brings out the worst of Silent Hill, thereby the worst of the people in Silent Hill. In case you haven't already figured it out yet, when people are here in this town, what they see and what they encounter is the darker parts of their personalities incarnate. They take physical form. So whenever the Other World pops in, it just cranks it up to 11. Like, it takes everything that was terrible about base Silent Hill and just makes it worse. Later games in Silent Hill, I believe they do kind of get into the other dimension stuff, but a lot of those later games started to just dumb down all of Silent Hill and what it's supposed to be, and they blatantly took monsters out of previous games, like Pyramid Head, and put him in games where he didn't belong, and that'll make more sense later. So I don't really count what the later games did. Imagine you're watching It, right, Imagine you're watching It with Pennywise the Clown. Beverly, the girl from It, she's afraid of her dad, so It takes form of her dad to torment her, right? Now let's say the sequel to It comes out, It Chapter 3, and your main character is a guy named Ahmed who lives in Kazakhstan, and he starts to get hunted by Pennywise, and he sees Beverly's dad too. And you'd think to yourself, that doesn't make any sense. Why is he seeing Beverly's dad? And you'd be correct. It wouldn't make sense. So that's what later Silent Hill games did. Monsters that hunt James or Harry, the protagonist of Silent Hill 1, technically Alessa's monsters. Anyway, we won't get into all that. And it just displaced them. So I don't count what the later games say about the Other World. Basically, I believe that the Other World is, we're still in Silent Hill. Like, nothing has changed here as far as geographically where we are on a map. Control Langston told Jesse, I just heard something hiss out of my right ear. I didn't like it. Anywho, there's compelling evidence for why they might be different dimensions. So take, for example, the town of Silent Hill. James and his wife just vacationed here recently, and there are people here. And there's even people you run into in Silent Hill. They won't even comment on the fact that they're from out of town or something. Like, they give reason to believe they might actually live there. And then even in Neely's bar, on the window, it said there was a hole here. It's gone now. I tend to think that's more of the environment changing rather than being a different dimension. Anywho, the imagery in the Other World amplifies based on who's here, who's experiencing it. So like, for example, this room we were just in, there's some chairs. Here's a wheelchair covered in white cloth. That matters. That's important later. And then it's like, well, if Silent Hill is a populated town, where is everyone? You know, where's all the people? Why aren't they running from the monsters in the streets? Why don't you see them anywhere? Well, my answer to that is that the town has been abandoned. Like, that's it. That's my short answer. The town got abandoned right before the events of Silent Hill 1. And yes, it physically changes what's in the world around you, but I wouldn't consider that an alternate dimension. Like if you waved a magic wand around my room I'm in right now and made all the walls black and turned all the furniture into cactuses, that doesn't mean I'm in another dimension. It just means you've changed the physical properties of what's around me. I like the first Silent Hill movie. I liked the first Silent Hill movie. I did. It's kind of a guilty pleasure thing, but in the world of video game adaptations, I thought it wasn't bad. You know, if you're a lore purist, it probably would just piss you off, but it's just from an entertainment value, I thought it was good. We do know that there is power around this town. It's extremely vague. They never go into detail on it, and for good reason. I think the vagueness helps keep it spooky, but there's some kind of power that maybe the town's cursed, you know, maybe it's like a spiritual thing. The spooky thing started to happen and people just started to bounce. Always thought Silent Hill was in the real world as well. I thought it was a cursed town. Once you go through the fog, you're trapped there. Basically, it depends on the game, right? Because in this game, there was never any indication given that James was trapped here. He just kept going. But in Silent Hill 1, the road was literally gone. He could not leave even if he wanted to. My take on it is that the people that come to Silent Hill, they come for different reasons that are sometimes valid and sometimes vague, but they always come here with some kind of personal quest or vendetta, and they tend to not leave until that vendetta or that quest is completed. Like take James, for example. He's here because he believes his wife is here, so he's looking for her. What the? Oh, you. And it's because Silent Hill is drawing them in and making them journey in further. So I guess it's a valid question to ask. Could they actually leave if they wanted to? Usually the answer is probably not, but they choose not to. If you got into like the extreme lore of Silent Hill, you've got people that believe like there's the real world where people live and the town is still populated. There's the fog world, which is where we entered for the first time. There's the other world, which is where we are right now. And then there's other dimensions too. I personally don't buy all that. Y'all should really look into when a town just genuinely runs out of money and people just leave. It's really fascinating. Take, for example, where I live right now. Where I live right now is just south of another town where back in the early 1900s, the towns were identical. There was no difference between them. Mostly for cattle trafficking, that sounds weird. Like cattle sales. People would come and do like auctions on cattle and herd them through. Well, the town I live in right now, or just on the outskirts of, is bigger than the town just to my north because of one key factor. And that's because when a railroad was built, they chose to build it through my town instead of the town just north of me. Had they chosen the one just north of me, the one north of me would probably look like mine does right now. Simple economic decisions can impact the future of an entire town or population. Say what we will, it's a good looking game. I wish they'd optimized it better, but I appreciate... Oh my god. I'm stuck. They did a good job with the details. So yeah, Silent Hill was abandoned, and it couldn't have been that long ago because again, James and Mary vacationed here. That's why he assumed this was the special place, and he was right. He was right. The letter he received was intended to bring him to Silent Hill. People hear ghost town, they assume, oh, a haunted town. Like, no, it just means an abandoned town. Speaking of which, if y'all ever get an opportunity to go explore some previously urban stuff, whether it's buildings or concrete or whatever that's been overtaken by nature over time, it's really cool to see. I've got an old concrete plant near where I live that's been abandoned for decades. It looks like the freaking living room in Jumanji when all the flowers come out. It's really cool. And then there's a street that has been completely abandoned because they built a bypass and now there's no reason to use that street anymore. So it's just in the middle of the trees and the woods. The pavement's all cracked. Just overgrowth has been coming up between the cracks. It's pretty cool. I don't think this is the right answer, but just to cross it off our list. When in doubt, do the opposite of what I think is correct. Understood. For anyone who's not familiar with Silent Hill 1, a very brief rundown. There's an enemy, I won't get the super specifics, but there's an enemy, Alessa, and it's her dreams, nightmares, and whatever fears that are impacting the world of Silent Hill the most. It all kind of culminates with this cult that's trying to free a demon. And the demon wants to get out of, I guess, the other world? And my question is, well, if the demon were to break out of Otherworld and take over the area of Silent Hill. If Silent Hill is just in another dimension, then who cares? You know, who cares? let it run rampant all throughout Silent Hill if it wants to. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect anything. But the way that the stakes of that matter is if it's not actually a different dimension, this is the real world we're in, and the environment's just being manipulated. In my opinion. My interpretation. Now. What would possess him to do this? Keep going. Because there's no icon in real life that says press A to search here. Like, you just walk on this toilet and go, oh, perfect. Let's stick my hand in there. That closed. That was not... That's how I got in the room. Oh my god. I'm waiting for that mannequin. Wasn't a mannequin this time. Can you shoot all the way over here? Oh, he can. That's depressing. The bird just couldn't take it anymore. Something that I think is so cool about Silent Hill, but really sucks if you're in charge of the franchise for it. It does show people different things based on where your psyche is, what trauma you've experienced, and what kind of your inner demons are. So it's a really cool idea, but if you're in the business of making new games and making sequels, it's like, well, shoot, we're gonna run out of traumas to impart on our characters eventually. And I think that's kind of what they did, or at least they thought they did, and that's why they put a bunch of nonsensical repeat monsters into later games that made no sense. I'm hoping for sweet, delicious loot in here. That actually just gave me like chills in my arms. Did not like that at all. Wow. Please don't have anything jump out at me. I don't have any ammo. Here's ammo. Where's the mannequin? Jeez. All right. Yep, here it comes. We're not gonna die. We're not gonna die. We're not gonna die. We're not gonna die. Here we go. Ah! Is that it? Is that all we're getting? Okay. Jesus. Okay. Get me out of here. Yeah, see, the whole aesthetic's changing now. Everything's getting muddy and slimy and nasty. It's called the other world for a reason, because it's the other world, but it's also like otherworldly. Like, in what context would this muddy earth ground in the middle of an apartment building make sense? It wouldn't. It's not as wacky and out there as Dark Place, but it's still pretty great. I eat this stuff up, man. I eat it up. The sound design's really good. I'm gonna be quiet for a second just so y'all can listen. See, I could understand in this scenario thinking you need to reach in there. I'm not sure I want Flubber's sloppy seconds, though. Thanks for the F-Shack, dirty Flub and the boys. Whoa, God, what is that? What am I looking at? Are those the nurses or something? Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Don't look up spoilers if you don't already know. I think I know exactly what this is going for. That's so good. Yeah, we'll get there. All in good time, don't worry. All will be explained as we go. So those are the air sirens usually associated with the world changing. So we might see it change back to regular now. Yep, here it is. So depending on who you ask, we're now either back in Fog World or the real world. Again, they argue over whether or not this is the real world we're in. The movies would tell you this is not. This is a different dimension, but we don't pay attention to the lore from the movies. They don't count.